And so there was a lot of information going around, and I wanted to make sure that everybody got on the same page. And so that's why I called this meeting, so that we can do pretty much a timeline as what happened when, what's dead, what's alive, and how we move forward. And it's as simple as that. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike Kelly from the Park District, who agreed to come here today, and I want to thank him for doing that. I mean, you guys bring out the big guns as it should be. So, Mike.
Yeah. So, good evening. I'm Mike Kelly. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the General Superintendent and CEO of the Park District. Thank you to anybody from Lebanon. Thank you for hosting us. And City Alderman, thank you. Pat Lamar, my COO, is in the corner. Heather Gleason, our Director of Planning and Construction, is with me, and there's some other staff here as well. So, the Alderman asked me to give you just a little bit of history of where Park District is and was with Jackson Park. So, does anybody remember Vice President Bob Pickens? Bob was,
Of course.
Yeah, okay, great. So Bob Pickens, about 7 years ago, walked into my office. I was COO at the time and said, hey Mike, before I walk out of here, I want to make an impact in Jackson Park. And I don't mean a piece of Jackson Park, I mean all of Jackson Park. And he said, all right, let's get a map up. And we blew up a big map, and I had this map on my wall for probably 3 years, staring me in the face, and it was Jackson Park, start to finish. And we just started looking at it and go, what are the needs? We all knew there was a hole, a kid could fall through a Darrow Bridge, right? We knew the tennis courts were in lousy shape. The lagoon in the harbor needs dredging every once in a while, and on and on and on. And we just started to look at it. We started putting a menu together. I met the Project 120 folks, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. They came to me and said, look, we've got some interest, we've got some ideas, we'd really like to reinvigorate Stock the Garden, we'd like to talk about the history. I said, great. They said, we want to raise money. I said, great. They said, we've taken some liberties of coming up with some concepts. I said, great, concepts. I know there's been a lot of community meetings with Project 120 folks, a lot of your noses are out of the So what I hope to do today is clear the air. No need to yell at me, no need to shout. Nothing's done. If I walk out of here today and nobody wants to do anything, I'm cool with that. Really. I mean, this is. I wanted everybody to be happy. I go back to that map that sat in my wall, and my conversation with Bob Pickens, and it was, hey, how do we make change in Jackson Park for the better for all? And how do we make change in our lifetime? Not 10 years, 20 years. I go, my office is littered with great concepts and designs that will never get built because they're either too expensive, or the community pushed back on it, or the alderman changed out from one alderman to another. There's a million reasons. So really, that's it. That's the most important part of this discussion is I'm here to listen, my staff's here to listen. If I have information, the questions, I'll offer it. And I'm the first one to say, raise my hand and go, I don't know. If you ask me a question, I don't know. I'm just going to tell you, I don't know. So with that, that's sort of the background. We have a PowerPoint presentation to illustrate different examples of the park and different concepts. I suggest maybe we get, I suggest we get into it a little bit, and then if I've got to go to the PowerPoint to illustrate some of the images, I'll do so. Does that make sense? Oh, you want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. There's room. Did everybody hear me? Did everybody? No? Okay. Well, why don't you just walk up and stand there? Anybody who can't see, why don't you just walk up?
I'm going to be moving in front of the round.
No, it's not Rita. Not the candidate. It's a guy.
Yeah. Yes, I will. So that says Jackson Park Projects and Framework. Jackson Park Projects and Framework Plan. I'll do my best.
No, he was on it.
She's going to read it. We're starting to get this. I didn't say anything.
Okay, do you want me to start?
Yeah, but you're going to have to come over here because the folks in the back can't hear it until we get a mic.
Okay, we're going to test my eyesight, see how well it is. Sure, yeah. So good evening, everyone. Heather Gleason, I'm the Director of Planning and Construction with the Park District. You still can't hear me? Okay, I'll talk really loud, then you can tell me to be quiet. So one of the things we usually like to start with at community meetings is just talking about our missions and our values. And as you probably know, we are very interested in creating beautiful park spaces, active park spaces, and really trying to balance different needs of different users in the park. So some people like to have a lot of passive space where they can just take a walk, go sit on a bench, read a book. Others want to do more active things like play a baseball game or have a round of golf. So the Park District really tries to balance all of those needs, which is a challenge, as you probably know. And it's one of the reasons that we embarked upon the Jackson Park Framework Plan. And Michael, if you could go, there we go. So the image that you see there is actually from the 1999 Framework Plan. And those of you who have been involved in these community processes for a long time will probably recognize that a lot of these ideas aren't necessarily new ones. So for instance, the Park District has been thinking about moving the driving range for many, many years, trying to compare. Sorry, I'll slow down and talk about it.
Maybe you can come closer, because we can't read it either.
I'll go to the front. Yeah. Yeah.
So what I was saying was the image that is up on the screen right now is actually an image of the 1999 Jackson Park Framework Plan. And a lot of the ideas that you've been hearing as Project 120's been out talking to the communities are ideas that actually have been floating around the Park District for a long time and have been in our framework plan. So, for instance, the relocating the golf driving range to try to consolidate our golf operations and actually create what Olmsted really thought of as a great one, or a passive space with passive people to meander, and trying to consolidate those busier activities for the driving range, the golf course, and keeping the Great Lawn Order open and passive. So that has been in the framework plan for a while, as has the idea of some kind of music space for people to perform, and that has been in our framework plans for a while. But the 6 projects that are up there, which some of you can read and some of you can't probably, are the Olmsted Ecosystem Restoration Project, which is in our current plans. And then the Columbian Basin Cherry Trees, the golf driving range relocation, which we just talked about. The Pavilion and Music Court, which I know a lot of you have heard a lot about. We'll get a chance to hear your questions later. The Sky Landing Art Piece by Yoko Ono, and then the Darrow Bridge restoration.
Next slide.
There we go. I can put it on. I can put it on. Could you give us? Sure. Well, we'll have to do that now. That's no problem. So I have to go. So the image that you see there is just showing the locations of those projects that I just mentioned. Those of you who are familiar with the park probably know where they are, but they're just illustrating that what we're really trying to do is to spread these projects throughout the park. As Mike mentioned, he's had this map in his office for many, many years, and we really wanted to do a comprehensive improvement to Jackson Park, and so we're trying to hit as many areas as we can. So this is the Olmsted Ecosystem Restoration, and really it started about with the Park District in 2013. So as you might imagine, over 120 years of use in Jackson Park, some of the Olmsted-like features degraded a little bit, don't quite have that same character that it used to when it was first created for the World's Columbian Exposition. So some federal funding became available. It was called the Great Lakes Fishery and Ecosystem Restoration Funding, and essentially what it is the federal government gives us 65% of the funding, as long as we come up with 35% of the funding. So we kind of local match and the federal funding matches. So the idea would be that we would look at the ecosystems, get rid of invasive species. The money from the feds really only paid for planning, design, and construction of the ecosystem and restoring the fisheries. And this is throughout the Great Lakes region. Oh, sorry, Michael, go back to that one more time. Thanks. So this is one of the areas that we actually first got introduced to Project 120 as well. Because one of the things that came up during that federal process was that obviously Jackson Park is on the National Register and a very important historic park, and they actually offered to help raise money to pay for an Olmsted expert. So that we were really marrying these two concepts of a historic landscape and ecological restoration. So the next project that we wanted to talk about was the planting of the cherry trees. So the Chicago Park District, in conjunction with the Japanese Chamber of Commerce, embarked on a project in 3 phases, in part to celebrate the anniversary of the Osaka Garden, on planting 120 cherry trees for the 120th anniversary of the garden. And so that's that project that is planted around the Columbia Basin. That later. So the golf driving range, as we talked about earlier, was an effort to consolidate our golf facilities south of Hayes Drive, and to create, again, the open lawn, giving us the opportunity to create sort of a unified passive open space for residents. So the question back here was, is the golf course moving? And the answer is no. The driving range, Michael, I don't know if you can pull that back up for a second.
Yes,
I know it's really hard
the
to see.
question
Could you
back there
point to
was, is the
screen?
golf course going away? The answer is no.
Yeah.
Is it
That's where the
shrinking?
driving range would go
Is it
to,
What?
not in
Is
that.
it shrinking to 9 holes?
Shrinking? No.
18 holes?
No. Jackson Park, no. No, the original idea was to move the driving range parallel to the first hole.
Hey folks, let me suggest, let me get through these projects and then we'll definitely have time for questions, but here are lots of different questions from different people, I can't answer them all at once, so. Let's move on to the pavilion. I know everyone's heard a lot about this, so, let us just explain what the idea was, because it is an idea, it's a proposal. So the idea behind the pavilion, the size of it was approximately 15,000 square feet, which is about 2.5 tennis courts. So I know it seems probably like a really big building, but if you can imagine 2.5 tennis courts, that's 15,000 square feet. So it wasn't intended to be a really large venue or some large concert hall. It was intended to be a small building where, yes, you could potentially have a string quartet or something play, but you would also have potentially an art exhibit.
Excuse me, perhaps if you came to the middle and turn your head back and forth.
All right, so let me just suggest something, okay? I know everybody has something to say about it, but if we could kindly just be quiet. I know, but there are also people talking, and so that makes it even harder to hear. So if you have a seat, I will have her come to the middle. I will have her come to the middle.